Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to explore a fascinating concept known as the mirror principle. This principle is about understanding how the world around us can be a reflection of our inner state, our thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and even our subconscious patterns. Now, if you've ever had the experience of running into the same kinds of problems repeatedly, or encountering certain types of people over and over, you might have asked yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Well, what if I told you that these patterns in life are not mere coincidences? What if the challenges, frustrations, and even the joys you experience are actually reflections of something deeper within yourself? The mirror principle suggests that life doesn't happen to us. It happens through us. What we experience externally mirrors what's happening internally. This means that by changing our inner world, we can influence our external reality. Over the next 12 minutes, we're going to dive deep into this concept, exploring its origins, how it works, real-life examples, and practical steps you can take to apply it in your own life. Let's start by unpacking the roots of the mirror principle. Part 1. The origins of the mirror principle. The mirror principle is not a new idea. It has deep roots in philosophy, psychology, and spirituality across cultures. To truly understand it, we need to take a look at where this idea comes from. In Eastern philosophy, especially in traditions like Taoism and Buddhism, there's a strong emphasis on the concept of inner harmony. These teachings stress that the world we perceive is not an objective reality, but rather a reflection of our internal state. In Taoism, for example, the balance between yin and yang reflects the idea that opposites are interconnected, and our internal balance or imbalance will manifest in the external world. Similarly, Buddhism teaches that suffering is often a result of our attachments and perceptions. The world reflects back to us the turmoil within our minds. A calm mind perceives peace, while a turbulent mind sees conflict in the same external circumstances. This idea aligns closely with the mirror principle, where the world acts as a feedback mechanism, showing us our internal state. Moving over to Western thought, we see similar ideas emerge in psychology. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist, introduced the concept of projection. Jung believed that individuals often project their unconscious thoughts, fears, and desires onto others. For example, if you strongly dislike a particular trait in someone, it may be because that trait reflects something about yourself that you haven't yet accepted. This psychological projection is an unconscious defense mechanism, and it ties directly into the mirror principle, because the people and events we attract into our lives are often mirrors of our unresolved inner conflicts. More recently, the concept has gained traction through modern self-development philosophies like the law of attraction, which states that like attracts like. The idea here is that your thoughts and beliefs, whether conscious or unconscious, are vibrational signals that attract corresponding experiences. If you're constantly thinking about lack and scarcity, you'll tend to attract situations of lack. But if your mindset shifts towards abundance and gratitude, more positive experiences will come your way. So whether we're talking about ancient spiritual teachings, depth psychology, or contemporary self-help, the common thread is this: our inner world shapes our outer world. And this is where the mirror principle comes into play. Part 2, how the mirror principle works. So how does the mirror principle actually work in our day-to-day lives? The premise is simple. The external world acts as a mirror, reflecting back to us our inner beliefs, emotions, and subconscious patterns. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine that you're constantly encountering rude or disrespectful people in your life. You might think, why is everyone around me so negative? But the mirror principle suggests that these external experiences may be a reflection of something going on inside you. Perhaps you have unresolved anger or frustration that you haven't fully acknowledged, and this is being reflected back to you through the behavior of others. On the other hand, if you're in a positive state, feeling confident, loved, and at peace, you're likely to attract more positive experiences and people into your life. You'll notice kindness, opportunities, and support in your environment because your internal world is in alignment with those external reflections. The key takeaway here is that life isn't random. The experiences we encounter are like feedback from the universe, showing us what we're holding inside. This isn't always easy to accept because it means taking responsibility for the patterns in our lives, especially the negative ones. But the good news is that if the external world is a reflection of our internal state, then by changing our internal state, we can influence what happens in our outer world. It's also important to note that this reflection isn't always literal. For example, if you're struggling financially, it doesn't necessarily mean you consciously think you want to be broke. Instead, there may be subconscious beliefs around money, like believing you're not worthy of abundance or that success only comes with struggle, that are being mirrored back to you in your financial circumstances. Let's talk about another example, relationships. If you keep attracting partners who are emotionally unavailable, you might be tempted to blame others for their inability to connect. But through the lens of the mirror principle, these patterns might reflect your own fears of vulnerability or intimacy. Perhaps you too are emotionally unavailable in some way, and this is being mirrored back to you in your relationships. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness. Once you become aware of the internal cause of an external experience, you can begin to shift it. The mirror principle gives us the power to take responsibility for our reality and to create change by working on our inner world. Part 3. Practical examples and application of the mirror principle. Let's get practical. How can you start applying the mirror principle in your life? Let's look at some specific areas: relationships, work, personal challenges, and explore how this principle shows up. Relationships. One of the most common places where the mirror principle is at play is in our relationships. Relationships often act as powerful mirrors, showing us what we need to work on within ourselves. If you're in a pattern of attracting toxic or unsupportive people, instead of asking, "Why do I keep finding these people?" the mirror principle invites you to ask, "What is this reflecting about me?" For example, if you have a pattern of being attracted to controlling partners, it might be reflecting your own insecurities or fears of being independent. Maybe you've unconsciously attracted someone who mirrors your need for validation or approval. On the flip side, when you're in healthy, loving relationships, it's a reflection of the love and respect you have cultivated within yourself. It's showing you that you're in a state of inner harmony, and the people around you are reflecting that back to you. Work and career. Let's move on to work. If you're constantly feeling stuck in your career or facing obstacles that prevent you from progressing, the mirror principle suggests that these external struggles might reflect limiting beliefs or fears within you. For instance, if you believe deep down that success is hard to achieve or that you're not worthy of recognition, those beliefs might be reflected in your external reality, perhaps through missed opportunities, stagnant projects, or a lack of support from colleagues. To apply the mirror principle, you could start by asking yourself, what beliefs do I have about work or success? Am I unknowingly sabotaging myself? What is my current situation mirroring about my mindset? Once you identify the internal block, you can begin to shift it. This might mean changing your beliefs about your own capabilities, practicing self-confidence, or reframing how you approach challenges at work. Personal challenges. Finally, let's consider personal challenges, such as health issues, financial struggles, or self-esteem problems. The mirror principle teaches us to see these challenges not as random hardships, but as reflections of something deeper. For instance, financial difficulties might reflect a scarcity mindset. Perhaps you've been conditioned to believe that money is hard to come by, or that there's never enough. Similarly, health problems might be a reflection of emotional stress or unresolved trauma manifesting in physical form. By applying the mirror principle, you can begin to explore these areas of your life with curiosity instead of judgment. Ask yourself, what is this situation reflecting about my internal state? What beliefs or emotions are being mirrored back to me, and how can I shift them? Part 4. Steps to applying the mirror principle in your life. Now that we've explored the mirror principle and its practical applications, let's talk about the steps you can take to apply it in your own life. Step 1. Awareness. The first step is awareness. Pay attention to the recurring patterns in your life, especially the ones that trigger strong emotions like frustration, anger, or sadness. These patterns are often the clearest mirrors of what's happening internally. When you notice these patterns, don't rush to blame external circumstances. Instead, take a step back and ask, what is this situation showing me about myself? Step 2. Reflection. Once you've identified a pattern or situation that seems to be reflecting something about your internal state, it's time for reflection. Ask yourself deeper questions like, what beliefs am I holding about this situation? What emotions are underlying my reaction? Am I projecting something onto this experience that I haven't dealt with internally? This can be difficult at first because it requires honesty and vulnerability, but this reflection is crucial for uncovering the deeper causes of the experiences you're attracting. Step 3. Acceptance. The next step is acceptance. It's easy to get defensive when we realize that our external world is a reflection of our internal state, especially when the reflections aren't flattering. But remember, the mirror principle isn't about blame, it's about empowerment. By accepting that your inner world shapes your outer experience, you gain the power to create change. Step 4. Change. Finally, the last step is to initiate change. Once you've identified the internal beliefs or emotions that are being mirrored back to you, you can begin to shift them. This might involve changing negative thought patterns, letting go of limiting beliefs, or healing unresolved emotional wounds. As you make these internal changes, you'll start to notice shifts in your external reality. It might not happen overnight, but with consistency, your outer world will begin to reflect the changes in your inner world. Part 5. Why the mirror principle is empowering. One of the most empowering aspects of the mirror principle is that it puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance, you begin to see that you have the power to shape your reality by changing your inner world. The mirror principle teaches us that the key to transforming our external experience lies within us, not in the outside world. When we take responsibility for our inner state, we open ourselves up to growth, healing, and transformation. And as we change internally, our relationships, work, and personal circumstances will start to reflect that positive shift. Remember, the mirror is always reflecting back to us who we are in any given moment. The more we work on ourselves, the more beautiful the reflection becomes. Conclusion: the mirror is always reflecting. To wrap up, the mirror principle is a powerful tool for self-awareness and personal growth. The world around us is constantly reflecting back to us our inner beliefs, thoughts, and emotions. By paying attention to these reflections, we can gain valuable insights into ourselves and begin to make positive changes in our lives. Life is always reflecting back to us who we are, whether we're ready to see it or not. The more we embrace this concept, the more we can shape our reality in alignment with our true desires and aspirations. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on this journey into the mirror principle. If you found this video insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit from this message. And as always, keep reflecting, keep growing, and remember, the world is your mirror.